After 44 kilometers of rush hour chaos, not one of these three systems won every scenario, not even Huawei. Here's the thing about ADAS marketing. Every brand shows you their highlight reel. Smooth merges, perfect lane changes, sunny afternoon motorway cruising. What they never show you is what happens at 6 p.m. on a Tuesday when the city is angry and the roads are a mess. So we decided to find out ourselves. 3 cars, 1 44-kilometer route, all run back-to-back during evening rush hour. The cars: the 2026 AITO M7 running Huawei ADS 3, the Li Auto i8, and the Xpeng P7 running the new VLA architecture. I'd argue this is the most interesting ADAS three-way you can do right now in China, because these three companies have taken genuinely different philosophical approaches to the problem. Huawei leans on raw sensor fusion and a massive proprietary compute stack. Xpeng's VLA is essentially a vision language action model, closer in spirit to what Tesla is doing with FSD. And Li Auto is somewhere in the middle, prioritizing comfort and predictability over outright ambition. The route had 4 distinct sections: urban signalized intersections, an elevated ring road stretch, narrow old city lanes, and an underground car park. Each section was designed to expose a different weakness. Let's go through them. The first 2 sections, city intersections and the elevated ring road, are where most people spend most of their commute, so I weighted these heavily in my own assessment. In the urban intersection test, all 3 systems handled green light stops and standard queue following reasonably well. But the interesting moments came at unprotected turns and at intersections where a scooter or pedestrian cut in late. Huawei ADS was the most assertive here. It committed to gaps that the other 2 hesitated at, and it read traffic light phase changes faster than I expected. Faster, honestly, than I drive myself. I think this is where the sensor suite pays off. The M7 is running LiDAR plus radar plus cameras, and that redundancy gives the system genuine confidence in ambiguous situations. Xpeng VLA was smoother in terms of longitudinal control. Acceleration and braking felt more natural, but it was more conservative at complex intersections. A couple of times it handed back control to me in situations where Huawei just pushed through cleanly. Li Auto fell in between, though I noticed it had the most comfortable deceleration profile of the 3. If you have passengers who get carsick, that matters. On the elevated highway, the rankings shuffled. Xpeng VLA was genuinely impressive here. Lane changes were initiated earlier. The system read highway geometry more fluidly, and it handled the merge from the on-ramp with a confidence that reminded me of Tesla FSD on a good day. Huawei was competent, but slightly more mechanical in its lane change execution. Li Auto, I'll be honest, was the weakest on the highway. It got the job done, but it felt like a system optimized for something else. This is where the test got genuinely interesting, and where my earlier predictions turned out to be wrong. Before we ran this, I assumed Huawei would dominate the narrow old city section. High sensor density, powerful compute. It should be able to thread a 2-meter gap better than anyone. I was wrong. In the old town lanes, where road markings are faded or non-existent, parked cars jut out unpredictably, and oncoming traffic negotiates informally, Huawei ADS was actually the most likely to disengage. Not dangerously, it handed back control cleanly, but it disengaged more often than I expected. I think the system is tuned to a higher confidence threshold, which is actually a reasonable safety choice, but it means real-world coverage in chaotic urban environments is lower than the marketing implies. Li Auto, surprisingly, handled the narrow lanes best. Its more conservative, comfort-first philosophy meant it crept through tight spots methodically rather than trying to be clever about it. Fewer disengagements, smoother path planning through the chaos. Xpeng VLA was in the middle, capable, but it made a couple of lateral positioning choices that felt slightly too close to parked cars for comfort. Then the underground car park. All 3 struggled here to varying degrees. Low light, no GPS, painted lines that are half worn off. Huawei recovered best once inside because the LiDAR doesn't care about lighting conditions. Xpeng's camera-heavy approach showed its limits in the darkest sections. Li Auto was slow but steady. I'd argue no system is genuinely ready to replace the driver in a badly lit multi-story, and anyone telling you otherwise is selling you something. The honest summary: Huawei wins cities and complex traffic reads. Xpeng wins highways. Li Auto wins narrow chaos and passenger comfort. Nobody wins everything. So after 44 kilometers, who's the all-rounder? Genuinely, I don't think there is one. And I think that's the honest, slightly unsatisfying answer that the industry doesn't want to say out loud. If I had to pick one system for a driver who does a mixed urban plus highway commute and wants the highest ceiling, I'd pick Huawei ADS. It's the most capable in the scenarios that are hardest: dense city traffic, complex intersections, late braking hazards. But you have to accept that it will hand control back more often in edge cases, and the AITO M7 is a big car that not everyone wants to drive. If you're a highway-heavy commuter and you want the most Tesla-like experience, smooth, vision-first, genuinely enjoyable to use on long runs, Xpeng VLA on the P7 is compelling. It's the system that felt most like it was improving in real time, which makes sense given the architecture. And if you have a family, you value predictability over peak performance, and you spend time in older urban areas, Li Auto's approach is underrated. It won't dazzle you, but it won't scare your passengers either. What I think is clear from this test is that the gap between these Chinese systems and what Tesla FSD offers in the West has essentially closed, and in some urban scenarios these cars are ahead. That's a sentence I wouldn't have said 2 years ago, and I think Western car buyers are going to start feeling that gap very soon. Let me know in the comments which system you'd pick, and if you think I got the narrow lane result wrong, I genuinely want to hear the argument. If you think I got the narrow lane ranking wrong, or if you've driven any of these systems yourself, drop it in the comments. I read everything. And if you want to see the full highway-only rematch between Xpeng VLA and Huawei ADS, subscribe so you don't miss it.